system. Zero.
Welcome back to the OG Vida podcast. Today we have a special guest, Frankie.
Hey,
How you
how you
doing,
doing,
brother?
brother?
Thank you
Thanks
for
for having me.
thank you for being part of this platform. How you been? Everything good?
Everything's good. Any day above ground is a good day.
Yes, sir. That part.
Um,
Who's Frankie Loyal? Who's where you grew up? What was your upbringing?
well, my upbringing in regards to what my mother and father. Let me see here. That's a tough one. My father was an orphan,
Okay.
so he grew up in an orphanage. Me and my aunts and uncles, they were separated at times, but they pretty much came up in orphanages and foster homes. And he met my mother, and they were in a very poor town. And to their credit, they were both self-made people.
Okay.
Um, my parents lived in Barstow, California. Apple Valley is where I was actually born. Out in the desert. And my father was one of the first Mexican CHP officers. So he was in law enforcement. Which growing up, we had a lot of we bumped heads a lot. And my mom was a teacher, and I was raised by both of them. But at a young age, I discovered punk rock music. I discovered the Clash, and from there on out, I went. Kind of felt like I was a pretty decent Catholic boy growing up, but
hmm
I kind of just went a different way, and I just knew that I wanted to see the world, or kind of find my way with art and music, and that's, um, I guess that's one way I'd kind of sum up my life. But there was a lot of bumps, a lot of obstacles, a lot of pain,
Yeah.
and a lot of hard lessons. So I'd like to think at my age now, at 56, I've come to a place where I can look back at it as, lessons, experiences, not bad things.
hmm
So, but I'm still trying to figure out who I am, if you want the truth, every day. I check myself, I do a checklist.
hmm
Oh.
That's great. You went to junior high school on the same area.
No, I went to 6 different high schools up in Northern California. I was in trouble a lot, and I'd run away a lot. And there was only one school to me that was really memorable. When I first got into, I was being punished, and I was sent to a drama class. And there was a woman named Mrs. Cunningham who I was scared of her actually, but she was the first teacher that pulled me aside and said, if you would spend more time focusing on something like this, because I think you have something here, and spend less time getting into trouble, making a bad name for yourself, you could do great things. And nobody ever talked to me like that. And, the sad thing was I ran away from home after that, and I got sent away for about 6 months out of state. So, um, that was just one of the many high schools I went to.
Yeah.
And then I had what they called independent study. And most people kind of took that as like, oh, I can kind of coast through to get a diploma. I had a teacher, his name was Ralph Vigil,
hmm
and he was this, and I found out later on that my family, were Native American as well, but he was this Native American gentleman that was very stoic. And he would give me these stacks of books and stacks of homework to keep me out of trouble. And he made sure I did my work, and he pressed me, and we would have these big discussions about life and politics and philosophy, and apart from learning my basic courses. And I graduated because of him. you know but yeah, I liked learning, I liked acquiring knowledge.
hmm
I just don't know if I really fit in too well with people. you
What
know
do you mean by that?
I I always kind of felt like, growing up when I did, being a punk rock kid, you were seen as a complete unstable, mentally unhinged, outcast, and you were treated that way. And sometimes we welcomed that, and other times it came with a consequence, whether it was with cops, with local cowboys,
hmm
good old boys, jocks. You were prone. I didn't. really think I was one to want to fight, but you had to fight your way out
Okay.
quite a bit, because you don't run. So that was definitely something that we caught on to pretty quick. So violence became, I want to say it was part of the norm, but it was just something you were conditioned to accept if it had to happen.
Got
And I don't say that with any joy.
Yeah.
I actually say it with a lot of regret. But you're just a kid. You're trying to find your way,
Correct.
and there's a lot of confusion that gets instilled in you at that time. A lot to figure out
So you felt out of place.
completely. And sometimes I still do, but I kind of take that now as a good thing.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not one to follow the crowd. Um, I think for myself, whether people agree with me or not on how I do things, but yeah, I'm just not one for crowds because when they talk about the Me Too movement, I
Hmm.
don't see it the way people see it as a Me Too movement. It's like, I hate this. Yeah, me too. Oh, I love this. Yeah, me too. It's like, I don't know if I like any of it. I just, you know, I think I observe a lot too. You know, I try to read the room. I try to uh, observe, and I take notes. I'm a Capricorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. So you going through that stage in life that make you to grow as an individual a lot faster than an average kid. You feel that by you being in that field and having those experience at that stage in life, that puts you in a position as I'm different type of thing.
Well, I don't know if it was I felt like I was different, but I definitely had to grow up fast. I found some footage somebody had of me from 1986. I was at a punk rock show in San Francisco. And I'm stage diving, and I have no fear, and it was a great time. And I'm thinking, I probably hitchhiked probably 100 miles to get to that show, or even more. And what 16-year-old kid does that? Is out on the streets and raising hell and living their best life. I had a lot of fun, believe me. But it's just, yeah, I didn't have a normal, per se, teenage upbringing.
Okay.
Like I said, what kid wants to run away from home?
No, nobody.
What kid, goes to juvie, does the opposite of what, you know, I thought. I thought I was going to have just a regular, normal life growing up. And like I said, you run away, you learn to catch on real fast, and you learn to, yeah, you've got to grow up. You have to adapt.
Hmm.
So I just felt like I definitely aged a lot, more than I thought I did. And now, being in my late 50s, I'm sort of like, I feel a lot younger at heart,
Okay.
way younger.
Because of that experience that you gain early
Yeah,
stages.
yeah. I don't know if I'm slowing down.
Okay.
I'm just navigating things a lot differently, way differently, almost extreme.
At what stage in life you felt that your life started moving to a different direction and start getting more adapting to the so-called life?
I think when I got sober, last Thursday on May 21st, I celebrated 24 years.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Now, I quit drugs 36 years ago.
Hmm.
Drugs didn't really do much for me. Alcohol was the great numbing agent. Um, a lot of people say, "Oh, when you get sober, things get better," and they do. Believe me, there's so many good things I would have screwed up if I continued to drink, but it's one of those things that you pray for clarity, or you think you pray for clarity, and then you get it, and then you look at yourself and you look at the things that you've done in your life that you're not proud of. You look at the things you've done that you regret. And when the clarity for me came in, it was like, oh, wait a minute. I have the clarity to see what I've done, things I'm not proud of, things I'm ashamed of, things that made me react and behave a certain way. But also now I have the clarity to be accountable.
Hmm.
I have the clarity to um, acknowledge the fact that I have remorse and I don't like the person that I once was, or I don't want to be this person. And that's not a bad thing. But
Hmm.
that took me years to figure out. There's a lot of growing pains. I got sober when I was 32. I'm 56 now. And, I felt like I really technically didn't start growing up until that time.
Until that time,
Mm.
what took you that decision for you to be sober?
I remember I remember having this memory. I had I'd been under the influence, some pretty hard stuff. And I ended out in this field when I was 18 years old. And it was a it was like this these plains, these country plains, these hillsides,
Hmm.
and they were barren. The sun and the heat had dried them out.
Hmm.
And I remember just looking out because it had been night before. I'd been up all night, seeing just this vast emptiness of nothingness.
Okay.
And I remember going, "Wow, this is all there is. This is as good as it's going to get. There's not going to be much from this." And I remember thinking that and believing it and acting on that for
Wow.
some time. And I got to a point when I was drinking where I wasn't numb anymore. I had to drink more to, you know, try to get myself mellowed out. And I remember that feeling of, oh, this is as good as it's going to get. This is it. This is my
Hmm.
life. And I knew that something had to give. Either I was going to die or I was going to have to flip the script.
Hmm.
And I knew a guy that I reached out to um, for help,
Hmm.
and he helped get me help. And to this day, I'm forever grateful to the guy. I haven't talked to him in years, but yeah, I got sober, and that
Best
was something
decision.
else. It was my best decision. It still is.
Hmm.
But I had this motorcycle accident, and it was the first time in 20 something years I thought I was going to relapse because the PTSD from the crash, or um, the anxiety, the everything that my body went through, you know, I was almost like, I don't think I can get through this by myself. I was really hanging on, for dear life. And I felt like I need to make this go away. And the fact that I stayed sober and didn't relapse um, during that period when I came home from the hospital, it's a huge miracle.
Wow.
And and I tell people, like, yeah, I've got, X amount of time, but none of us are immune. It can change like that. And my lady has 24 years. She's a couple months ahead of me. And I remember just hanging on to her for dear life. And there's another buddy of mine, Sammy Town, from this band Fang.
Hmm.
I grew up watching Sammy since I was 15, his band play, and we're still, I consider him a brother, always checking up on me daily, reminders of the promises and
Hmm.
everything that keeps me accountable and keeps me aware and keeps me grateful. And I think that's what got me through that dark period. I couldn't walk. I couldn't
Wow.
really move. I was bedridden for a couple months when I came home. My body tweaked out a lot. Um, it was scary, but then I found a way just to stay grateful. Like the fact that I can walk around now, huge. The fact that I'm exercising again because I was a runner
Okay.
prior to my accident. The fact that I'm able to do an hour cardio again, it's a blessing. The fact that I can eat. People can do this with
Hmm.
ease. It took me 4 months to learn how to do that again.
Wow.
And it's just these little things. Like, oh, I'm grateful for that.
Was that accident pretty aggressive? The way that you explaining it, you've been riding for so long.
Yeah, it was a freak accident. That's all it was. It had to do with the bad roads we have in LA,
Yeah.
which are a huge political issue, apparently, which they need to be addressed because a lot of people have mishaps on these LA roads.
Hmm.
And the rains had occurred, so my back tire fishtailed and got caught in a groove.
Okay.
I don't remember anything about it. I finally met some people that saw it happen. It
Yeah.
happened at 3:30 in the morning. But yeah, I was thrown from my bike. I had an impact. The impact was so hard that I broke the hardest ribs to break, punctured two lungs. My ankle was twisted,
Wow.
all the way around. At first, I thought I lost my foot. And I remember waking up, seeing my bike far away from me, and I had my Cardo Bluetooth
Mm-hmm.
and I called Emilio Rivera. It was 3:30 in the morning. I was like, "Hey, brother, I think I had an accident." Like, because I remember subconsciously when he had his accident, we were going to meet up. He called me, so something triggered it where I called him,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't get up. And then, ironically enough, LA Fire Department happened to be driving by,
At 3 in the
and
morning.
and these guys from a CVS across the street, who I'm super grateful for, came running across the street because there was nobody out, and they helped me and they got me to the hospital. And I thought everything was fine. I had a broken ankle. I was kind of joking around. The next
Mm-hmm.
thing I know, a nurse asked me, "Do you feel tired?" And I remember feeling really sweaty and cold at the same time. And I said, "Yeah, I feel really tired." And I remember being on an operating table and I remember hearing nothing but chaos. "Where's the blood? We need blood delivered. He's losing so much blood. Where are you guys?" I hear people, I just hear chaos. I hear my friend on the next, on the other side of the
Mm-hmm.
curtain yelling, "Talk to him, talk to him." And there's this nurse and she's holding my hand. And, when you think about hanging on for dear life, you think of just hanging on with everything. I probably had the lightest grip because I was losing blood and I was dying. And I remember looking at her saying, "Oh, this is it, huh? I'm dying, huh? I'm going to die." And she's like, "No, you're not going to die." And maybe she believed that to be true, or maybe she was telling me that to keep me going. But
Yeah.
I remember going out. I remember the white light and
Wow.
other stuff I experienced that I will not talk about
Yeah.
because it's too personal.
Yeah.
But I remember, coming back,
Yeah.
and then I had complications in my second operation,
Wow.
and that I didn't need to know. But there's,
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better word, jerk off of a doctor had to throw that one out there,
Yeah.
rub it in my face a little, and so I had a hard time. I had a hard time coping with everything for that.
Wow.
It was a lot to come back to because I felt like when you that happens to somebody, and I've talked about it with people that have gone through a similar experience,
Mm-hmm.
you see things and you feel things that I don't think any mere mortal should see. And once you see it and you experience it, you can't unsee it and you can't take away what you felt. And that's, for me, some people found it very beautiful. It was terrifying. There was a lot of nights I woke up in a cold sweat where I was freaked out. And like I said, my lady, she's tiny. She'd be on top of me, holding me down because
Wow.
I just, I'd start shaking and, I was a wreck. But, I've gotten to the point where I can talk about it now and it doesn't upset me, but it definitely changed my life. Changed my life.
I'm sure the way that you're expressing it,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's definitely a life-changing experience. You know what I mean? We don't know what we have until we
Right.
don't have it.
And whatever people believe in, they can believe in what they want. I
Hmm.
just know for a fact that there is something there
Hmm.
when we go.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that there's something there.
Hmm.
And that's the hard part. I I know I'll visit it again one day. I just don't want to anytime soon. I want to be here another
I understand.
I want to be here another 60 years.
Even more if it's
Yeah.
possible.
100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel that that experience changed your ways of thinking now that you were here after encountering that bad experience? Because prior of that that incident, I'm sure your way of thinking it was just as a normal individual, it's just because of the way of life that you had before. I don't know if I'm quoting it properly.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying. It changed my life because I I always felt like, like I said, I would wake up every day, my home, and I would jog up this hill.
Hmm.
It's zero point 0.8 miles. And I would jog up this hill and exercise. And I always felt really good and healthy at my age that, a guy could do that. And and I also felt grateful for like my life that I had, but there was something that apparently I needed to learn in this accident, something huge that I didn't understand at the time. And I think I realized that how can I word this properly?
Yeah.
Apparently I wasn't being grateful enough.
Interesting.
As much as you think you are at times, there's always somebody or something that knows better.
Okay.
And so even if I'm having my worst day now, and I've had quite a few of them because this healing situation hasn't been the easiest, I can walk, I can breathe. My recovery physically has surprised the doctors a lot.
How long
Um,
did it took you to be to where you at the stage you are right now?
well, it took about 3 months, I think.
That's quick.
Yeah.
That's a fast
And it
recovery.
was frustrating because I'd wake up in a bed going, oh, this is how your day is going to start, and this is how your day is going to end. And that was hard sometimes, because my body was tweaking out, and the doctors would be like, "Don't freak out. It's your body's trying to acclimate to the physical trauma it went through.
Hmm.
We don't know how you're still here," and that kind of stuff freaks you out.
Fuck.
And I had one doctor; he'd make jokes about it, and I'm like, "Why? Why are you making jokes about
Hmm.
this? I don't find this funny."
Okay.
But I love this guy. He's been my doctor for years. He goes, "We have to laugh about it." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because if we don't, we'll cry." He goes, "The night I heard you were in the ICU and we almost lost you, I cried.
Hmm.
I don't want to cry anymore. We need to laugh." And that kind of, in a weird way, changed my perspective too. Like
Okay.
some things have happened that have been exactly too fun, but I kind of, you know, at least I'm alive to kind of navigate it. And but I choose to just, I'm glad I'm here every day. I don't care what happens. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I can walk. And the first thing I do if I'm losing my edge a little bit on
Hmm.
things or not calm, the first thing I go, hey man, you can walk. You can walk.
Be grateful, right?
And I made it, months before the accident, I had to do a signing in Albuquerque to Comic Con, and
Hmm.
one of my sponsors, a motorcycle company, Robert Salazar, was like, "There's this church in New Mexico I want you to go to." He goes, "It's off the beaten path, and a lot of miracles happen here, and I think you should go." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe I'll go." Well, my lady and I met up with him and his wife, and we
Hmm.
went to that church before I had to be at my parents. And it was something life changing. It was very hard to explain.
Okay.
So I felt like I'd kind of made my peace with the big guy
Hmm.
at that moment. So when this whole thing happened, I wasn't angry. I wasn't questioning, why did this happen? It happened.
Yeah.
I wasn't, this should have never. I accepted everything. And this priest came into the ICU room when I
Hmm.
was just in a bad way. I was in so much pain and it was unbearable, like to think about it. And he
Wow.
said, "You know what just happened?" I'm like, "No, what just happened?" And he said, "Well, sometimes God will take people like you and break you in a million pieces to put you back together to be the person he wants you to be, not who you think you need to be." That was heavy, right? So I try to check myself every day, like
Bro,
thinking about that. Like,
that's
yeah,
pretty deep.
it's huge because there was a lot to put back together, you know. So, and to this day, I don't know what was worse, the physical part or in here, all that, you know.
What have you learned from this experience?
Life is precious, which I always believe that, but when they say tomorrow's not guaranteed, believe it.
Yeah.
I was just going to a CVS to get a battery for my key fob for my Harley. That's all I was doing. Nothing crazy, you know. I was having a regular night,
Yeah.
and in a second, everything changed. And that's the part that freaks me out sometimes, but that's also the part that I accept a little bit too. Like, it happens. Uh,
Do you think that you needed to go through this pain for you to see the bigger picture?
As much as I don't want to admit it, yes, because I'm hard headed, I'm stubborn,
Hmm.
I'm very self willed, like a lot of us.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a part of me that thinks, well, I don't think I'm that way. Well, I am. And if I'm going to learn a lesson, I'm going to have to learn it the hard way or twice as hard. That's just always been my lot.
Okay.
But at the same time, anytime I've ever been gifted a blessing in life or something good, it's always been greater than I'd ever hoped for. So there's two sides to that. It's just finding the balance in it.
Correct. But at the end of the day, thank you for sharing that. That's really deep, to be honest with you, and I highly appreciate for taking that opportunity
No,
to
thanks
us
for
and
having
sharing
me.
that. You know what I mean?
And thanks to Rocco and the staff at Tattoo Mania for letting me have their shop
Yeah.
on a
Thank you, Brad.
Sunday. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now take us back as now you're not 90% or 100% fully recover, but now you're taking in things on a different way of life and
Hmm.
more calm and embracing everything that you're going through and you're about to go to. What's new for Loyal?
I mean, we have a clothing line. We
Hmm.
relaunched that, which uh, one thing that makes me happy, and I do want to say it, is, when I had my accident, a lot of good people, even some of my old bosses from the show reached out, like, do you need anything? And
Yeah.
just say the amount, we'll send you something, or people wanted to do a GoFundMe. And I was like, I don't feel right about that.
Hmm.
I could always, the medical expenses got super
I'm
ridiculously
sure.
high. But when I relaunched the line, a lot of people started buying my merch and
It's great.
supported me that way.
Hmm.
And that means a lot because they know the history of Loyal clothing. I had an ex-business partner who was just a snake.
Okay.
And he put us in a bad way, not just with his inner workings and his behavior, but also, with some of the reps and the companies that I worked with. And they knew that, but they still stayed, for lack of a better word, they stayed loyal to me and hung
Hmm.
in there with me when I was trying to get everything, back into motion. And now that we have, the company's been doing all right. Surprisingly,
That's great.
like it's been going a lot faster and picking up, and it just means a lot because when people buy this stuff, they're helping our company. They're helping us take care of our people, and then I've been out auditioning again. I've got some movie that I'll be doing later on in the next few months.
Hmm.
And then we have Sturgis coming up, which is I'm excited about. I work with the family over at the Buffalo Chip, the Woodrow family. They're
Yeah.
good people. There's some stuff on the books.
It's great.
So I'm hoping to be able to, schedule wise, to ride back out to Sturgis because I want to do that mentally. I want to do it again.
That was going to be my next question. How do
Yeah.
you feel going back into two wheels?
I'm back on two wheels. Um, when I was bedridden and
Hmm.
still healing up and I couldn't walk, we had done this project with Fluffy
Hmm.
for the SoFi show he was doing with Joe Coy. So we had Emilio, Clayton, Irby, some of the Mayans reunited to do this skit with a bunch of other actors from like Blood In, Blood
Yeah.
Out, Next Friday, and what have you. And when I was in the ICU, and I remember somebody had called, and I told my lady, just tell him I'll be ready to do it. I'll be ready by March 21st. I didn't know I was in such a bad way. Nobody told me at the moment, but I worked towards getting there.
Recovery.
Hmm. And I had to do it. I had to keep my word. And when we got to that night when it actually happened, it was unreal.
I'm sure.
It was like, am I really am I alive? It's just one of those like cheesy made for TV movies of the week where the guy thinks he's alive and he's going through the stadium and people are cheering, but he's really going to heaven or
Yeah.
somewhere else. Like, but that's what motivated me to do it. And then I talked about Rocco earlier. He's like, you need to go back to the accident site where you
Hmm.
crashed. And I was like, I'm not ready to do it. Anytime I even think of the place, I'd start kind of freaking out. And and finally, I came up and said, hey, you ready to take that ride? He was like, oh, that ride. I was like, yeah. And then buddy Earl piggybacked me
Yeah.
with his vehicle, and I went there and where the accident was and sat with it for a minute and realized, okay, this is what I've been so afraid of.
What
And
exactly was being afraid? Why on
it's
what
just
part?
reliving, because I'd have these little PTSD moments where things would kick in. Like I
Hmm.
remember going on this big hike one night and the sun came down and the street lights came out and I
Hmm.
looked up. I had a recollection of being on the table, seeing the
Okay.
hospital lights in the ICU or the ER. Kind of freaked me out. Kind of just set me off for a minute.
Hmm.
And just I remember the bike fishtailing and then I remember coming to. That moment of time where I don't remember anything
Hmm.
freaked me out. Because I'm thinking, is there something I could have done different? Was the PSI on my tires low? Was I riding like a jerk?
Okay.
Which I found out, luckily I wasn't because the witnesses told me.
Yeah.
But also, once we went to the site, I got to go across the street to the CVS and thank the gentleman who responded, and helped me, when I went down. And like I said, yeah, I wasn't ready to do it. I wasn't ready to take on more than I already had I had
Yeah.
a full plate.
Correct.
So uh,
Now you feel good, better with yourself, within you.
yeah, I can go by there. I mean, when I had to go back to all the doctor's appointments, and I had plenty of them, I just kind of, you know, I didn't want to see it. I would start kind of freaking out. And now I pass it and I just have a different kind of respect for that lousy, horrible,
Yeah.
unpaved street, that, the mayor needs to fix.
You pass through there a lot, or
Not a lot, but on occasion.
okay.
But, it's just a reminder, like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, something major happened in my life there.
correct.
Yeah.
You taking it as a positive way change or as
I have to, like my doctor said, nobody wants to cry about this. We need to laugh and learn,
correct,
like, so yeah, I choose to take it as, I have to take it as a blessing.
correct.
I didn't do anything wrong. If I was riding like a jerk or showing off, then that would have been on me. But that wasn't the case. It was just a freak accident. I'm just glad that of all places, it happened half a block, from Cedar Sinai, because earlier in the summer, I was out in Sturgis on my way to Sturgis. I rode alone this time because I had some charities I had to do.
Okay.
Broke down in Wyoming out in the middle of nowhere where I had no reception. I was stranded out there for hours. If something would have happened to me out there, that would have been a totally different story. There would have been no reception to call for help. There, I would have been screwed. So it was a blessing of
Yeah,
all places. If it had to happen, glad it happened
it
there.
happened there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Wow, Frankie. I mean, it's definitely. I don't know what to say on that part. To be honest with you.
That's life,
Yes, sir. I feel life gives us these experiences that we don't know how to process, but at the end of the day, we learn something from it.
Yeah, and I'm stubborn, or so I hear. So I I had a lot to learn. I still do. I mean, I learned something from it every day. I talked to my lady like at 4 in the morning. I was like, I just see things so different now, or I don't know if I have time for this in my life anymore. I like being at home, drinking a cup of coffee on the balcony.
Hmm.
I've been watching reruns of Miami Vice and The Incredible Hulk, and yeah, this is peaceful. This is what I like, But like I said,
Is Frankie now picking and choosing what to do, certain things? So, what makes you feel better?
yeah,
What makes you feel comfortable?
yeah. I mean, there's things that frustrate me, like anybody else. I don't feel, like I've had this enlightenment where
Yeah.
I think I walk on water. I have all the answers, but I definitely, the one thing I could say prior to my accident, the people I love, I'd always tell them I love them. I never had a problem doing that. And I remember somebody asking me, well, why do you just always tell us you love us?
Hmm.
Like, well, I get on that bike, there's no guarantees, you know.
Correct.
And for me, it's crazy because I was talking to you earlier. I was kind of going on a tangent about something that really annoyed me. But when you're in that moment where you think you're going to go, you don't think about, oh, this jerk cut me off, on the road. This person ticked me off, or this didn't go my way, or this didn't happen. All I could think about was, oh my gosh, like the people I love, like I don't want to be taken away from them. I don't want to not have the chance to be near them or tell them I love them, or just that to me was the scariest thing ever. You don't think about the petty stuff. You think about the things you love, the people you love.
Hmm.
Love is a huge word,
Correct.
and I think that's something that always kind of I remind myself every day too. Like it's kind of it's hard for a guy that would do this a lot and be okay with it to say, oh, at the end of the day, it's about love in its fastest, wildest, abundant form. Not in a kind of way, but yeah, that's something that's definitely that was a game changer for me.
I'm sure it
Yeah,
was. How do you feel that you want people to remember you?
I don't care, to be honest. I'm not that important. You know, how many people die every day, right? And life goes on. Now, when I was talking earlier, I was watching Incredible Hulk or what have you. A lot of those actors I saw growing up
Hmm.
passed on. A lot of them did great work. If somebody remembers my work or a contribution like that, that I did that might have inspired them or made them feel a certain way,
Hmm.
I'm good with that. But me as a person, I'm not that important. I'm not that significant. I'm just, you know,
I think you are, Frankie. I
and I
think
appreciate that.
people care about you, like you said. They call you, they want to make sure that you're good. Overall, all the
Yeah,
above. The
yeah,
little details, like you said, that
yeah, I
never got it
appreciate that.
before.
Yeah, I don't know. I picked the worst career to try to be under the radar. So, but at the same time, I really do try to be under the radar.
Yeah,
I really do. And so I just don't think like going to leave this, not leaving the Eiffel Tower behind or Mount Rushmore.
yeah,
But if there's anything I know that I want to leave this planet is saying that, I cleaned up my mess or I did the best that I could, you know, and whatever lessons I needed to learn, like I learned them before I had to go.
yeah.
That's what I want, you know. But yeah, it's pretty much as simple as I could make
Simple as
it.
that.
Mhm.
What got Frankie Loyal to acting?
Uh,
What's a backstory on that?
I mean, I was in little plays growing up, and I think it's the observance of people intrigued me. The the contradictions. Before I knew what a contradiction was, I don't know what the word meant, but the things that just didn't add up,
Okay.
how complex people can be, how the word truth, when you think of an actor or a storyline, can be played out in so many different ways, where they say there's their truth, your truth, the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the best scenario I can give, when people are like, well, I hate this character. I don't like this. Well, I was always intrigued by, I mean, the best way I can break it down is you have a guy who is sitting at the table reading a newspaper. Joe Blow is getting sent to prison for killing a liquor store owner.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, oh, what a horrible guy. He deserves to go. What a bad man. But then you look into the life of Joe Blow and realize that he had worked 40 hours a week, was trying to raise his daughter on his own. She had a bad medical condition. He couldn't afford the medical resources to take care of his daughter. He feels like he's failing as a father. He loses his job, and the only thing he can think of is, I'm going to have to rob this liquor store. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I need to get money to take care of my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the gun goes off and he kills a guy on accident. Is he really a bad guy? Who's to say? That was his truth. Good intentions, obviously,
Yeah.
went south, but then you have the guy, oh, he deserves to die. Well, and it's the conflict there that even as a kid, watching was like that always kind of blew my mind. And I remember what really kicked it off for me was seeing an episode of Barney Miller. My dad was a cop. We didn't have the best relationship. We butted heads a lot. Being a punk rock kid and
Mm-hmm.
your dad a cop, you know. And I remember there was an episode where Chano was a character's name. He was a plainclothes cop. He responded to a bank robbery and he killed two bank robbers. And his character, I assume he was probably just a guy that was working to take a paycheck. He wasn't trying to change the world. But they never talked about PTSD back then. This is the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And his character was struggling with the fact that he killed these two guys. And in the scene, Barney Miller pays him a house visit.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are close. They work together every day. And they're sitting at a table, but there's an elephant in the room. And neither one can say the right thing that doesn't upset or confuse the other guy when they should be having the most honest conversation between them. And there's comedy involved. And you're thinking, well, if this is such a sad situation, how can this be funny? You know? And in the end, Hal Linden, who played Barney Miller, tells this guy, did you know that the sperm whale has a throat size this big? And then the guy goes, oh yeah, I always wondered about that. And there's a little comedy relief there. And he goes, why is that? And he says, because it's just the way it is. There ain't anything you can do about it. And you're kind of going like, even as a kid, that's deep.
Yes,
And
it is.
then when Barney leaves, Chano starts crying. And I remember seeing my dad cry watching that scene. And my dad was, he could scrap. He
Mm-hmm.
was an angry guy. He'd bring it home. And I remember just watching that going like, this is supposed to be funny. My dad's crying. My dad never cries. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And that episode kind of, in fact, we did some stage scenes in one of the actors' studios I was in, and we did another version of that. And I was just always inspired by the complexity of it. And I think that drew me more and more and more to want to do it. Did I think I could do it?
Hmm.
Yeah. Did I think I would ever get a chance to do it? Nah, probably not. Boy, was I wrong. Thank God I was wrong. No.
What was your first break when they found you?
Nash Bridges.
Okay.
I was in 96. And I was walking down the street and a guy asked me if I wanted to be on a TV show. And I almost dropped him because I thought he was trying to proposition me to do porn. And I was like, dude, go away. And then my friends, and they had a tattoo shop as well. And they're
Okay.
like, no, no, they're scouting for a TV show. And they're like, you should do it. And I was like, nah. Like, you should do it. I was like, nah. I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I went down and did it and got the audition. And I didn't know what I was doing. When they yelled action, I was on a TV show. I botched it so bad. But then I got some commercials after that, and then did some films, and then my agents were like, "You have to move to LA," which I was deathly afraid of. I was
Hmm.
like, "I've got it really good here in San Francisco. I don't know." And I did, and the first few years were the hardest years of my life here because I was newly sober, and there were certain people I knew I just didn't want to associate with because I didn't want to fall back into bad habits. And I was so lonely that when we had answering machines on our phones, when Edison would call and say, "Hey, you better pay your bill or we're going to pull your power," I was so happy someone left a message on the machine because I was so alone.
Wow.
And it's weird because I live near where that place was, and when I walk by and I look up at the balcony, I sometimes see myself as just this kind of lonely but determined person, I think about how much things have changed, you know.
Come long ways, Frankie.
I think so. I'm still trying to get there, But yeah, it's strange. It's really
I think
strange.
it's strange in a good way.
Yeah, life is strange and it's not always bad, is it?
Hmm.
I think that's what I'm learning. It doesn't all have to be bad.
Correct.
If it can be dark and crazy, well, it can be good and crazy. And I'm leaning more towards that in my old age, I think.
Think we sometimes we gotta go through harsh times to learn and appreciate life overall.
Yeah, we do. And I think where I missed the boat on that is when I was crawling inside of a bottle. But I also know why.
Hmm.
I was numbing myself out, So,
You
yeah.
think alcohol overall is just what we the word um is being played too much for people to be using it and abusing it to hide their pain.
I mean, for me personally,
Hmm.
alcohol, drugs, mental slavery. That's just my opinion. But then again, um, when I was in high school, uh, and they banned this book in the high schools, my teacher made us read 1984
Okay.
and Brave New World, but I geared more towards 1984, where you had the workers and they were given alcohol and cigarettes or vodka and cigarettes as payment. That was their rewards, and that kept them. So I sometimes think about that's what it did to me. That's just my personal opinion of it.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, when I did do it, it worked for a while. I got to numb a lot of stuff out. And but it was a Jekyll and Hyde thing for me.
When you say numbing, you didn't want to deal with them. You didn't want to admit them and process them.
Yeah, I mean, when you're young, you don't have the tools, and the resources to, back then, and people say, oh, like when they talk about safe spaces, I don't know what that is, to be honest with you. I never grew up in a safe space. I ran away. There's nothing safe about being out on the streets. Um, I put myself in harm's way a lot, which is the opposite of safe. So um, I think trying to process and, growing up too fast too, like I said, booze, drugs, whatever, alcohol or cigarettes, all
Hmm.
that, was a vice, but it was, yeah, I think I grew up too fast at that time. So, but I didn't have the resources or the capabilities to understand that, how I was behaving. So for me, alcohol is like, it's just like lighting a fuse on a stick of dynamite. Like I'm very honest about it. When I got to Mayans, if I had still been drinking, I'd have been fired from that show in the first hour. I would have found a way to screw it up, you know.
Why you say that?
It's just I was that kind of drinker, you know. I mean, I think I could contain it and hide it well, but it would have come out eventually some way. I would have just self-sabotaged myself. And I think that's what a lot of us do when when we drink
The influence.
and we can't control it.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, it's something good, something I can screw up. There, let me get that
Let
for
me
you.
go through that.
Yeah.
How did that show Mayans change your life?
I'll say it in the most polite terms. Once you're put out into that platform,
Mm-hmm.
it's like losing your virginity. You can't get it back. You can't take it back. You're out there. You're out there for people's opinions, which sometimes aren't, the most pleasant, but who cares? I don't do what I do in my life for their approval, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that you, you're just you're a target. You're out in the open now. And you're also hired to do a job where you're trying to honor somebody's vision and, bring something to it. And, as much as you think you have certain things figured out, you learn a lot of hard lessons on the way. You experience, things a little, to me, they were way more intense. I'm just glad that I had some sobriety under my belt to, you know, navigate things and but I also, I think in some ways our characters were written very much to match our personalities. I think
Okay.
um, my character, who's kind of under the radar, I like to kind of watch. I like to spend a lot of time in my trailer. I liked preparing for work.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like to be out. I wasn't out there for social hour. Um, I was there to work. I was there to do my job. Because I didn't know how long my character was going to last. I didn't know if he was going to make it past the first season,
Mm-hmm.
but he made it to the end. And I heard he didn't die, which made me really happy. They told me that. So he's doing federal time somewhere. Him and Bishop,
Yeah.
if I recall. So I think people confuse work, that type of work, and fame or superstardom. They get it confused. For me, it's work.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work, I'll work 100 hours a day. I love it. Just give it to me. But as far as like putting me on a red carpet and, what do they say? Shaking babies, kissing hands, or kissing hands and shaking, or
Yeah.
kissing babies, shaking hands. I I don't know if I'm the perfect candidate for that. I'll show up when I need to show up.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that people watched our show. People loved it. When I'd ride across the country, I felt like I met more people in America at every gas station I stopped at when I'd gas up on the bike. I met more people. Um, and, they'd want to give you their take on the show. And there were some really interesting takes, and I was really happy that I got to experience that, you know, because when you're doing the work, all you could think about is I got to get from this script to the next episode. Hopefully I don't get killed because my character will die and I'll be out of work.
Mm-hmm.
And you forget that once it goes off, it goes out into the world. People watch you on TV.
Yeah.
I'm too immersed in this, which I was for years. I was in that bubble. So you're like, oh yeah, I did a TV show. People watched this. It's kind of surreal, you know.
You still feel that it's like that?
I mean, I think it was memorable. I think that show will always have something that people will remember
Mm-hmm.
and like. And I'm glad that we had that impact because we did. I've heard it, and like I said, guys, I remember guys from this refinery. They worked in the oil refineries. And
Mm-hmm.
guys, yeah, every Tuesday night when we were done here, we would pick a house where we would go and we get our beers and have a barbecue and watch the show. And other guys like, my dad died, but we would watch this show up till the time that he died. It was his favorite show, and it was nice to hear because I didn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
with my father. In fact, we were filming when my dad died, so I didn't even get to see him in the hospital. He died of COVID. He was a few hundred miles away, so there was that going on. So, people's experiences. I remember being in the gas station. The guy said, "Hey, man, would you go meet my friend? He's in this van." And I'm going, like he's in a van, like we're in a gas station,
Yeah.
like we'll get kidnapped or something. But there's a really nice homeless man, and He watched the show on his phone.
Wow.
And I talked with him for a minute, and he had this really cool dog, these
Hmm.
really cool eyes. I'll never forget, you know. And it's just these experiences. You just never know where that will take you. And Paul Sorvino, the guy who played Paulie in Goodfellas,
Hmm.
he gave me the best advice when I was struggling and as an actor and trying to find my way. And he was really inspiring and humble and gracious. And he told me that just don't worry about all the nonsense, kid. Just stick to the work. Stick to the work, and you will be surprised where it takes you one day because you're going to do something.
Hmm.
And man, he could have been more right. So I always just try to stick to the work. I don't care about the other noise. I really don't. I'd rather be on my bike and hear that noise.
Any advice that you want to shoot to anyone out there that wants to follow the steps of acting?
Is there anybody? Let me see. Well, just be prepared for a lot of rejection, a lot of no's. Learn not to take it personal, which is hard when you put your life's work into something. But know that the big word that's going to fall in your face a lot is failure
Hmm.
with a capital F. And that's not bad because if you're not afraid to fail, and I've failed a million times and I'll fail 10 million times more in my life, you know, if you're not afraid of that, then nothing will stop you from getting where you need to go. That gives you a sense of fearlessness that you need to have to do this, you know? And, you know, I've been doing some pretty good auditions this week that I really like the characters. And if I get it, awesome. If I don't, that's okay too. Because in my mind, it's like, well, what do I have to fear? Hell, I almost died twice a few months ago. Can't get any worse than that.
Yeah.
Just got to be fearless. And if I failed in their eyes and they didn't get what they wanted from me, well, I accept that.
Hmm.
It's okay. I just tell them that. But Robert Patrick said this, and I agree with him 100% on this. If you're going to do this, don't have a plan B, which is, you know, it's scary. You know, you do it like Yoda says, do or do not, you know. I did it. I didn't have a backup plan, you know. I worked my butt off in the kitchen, you know, on a line, you know, 12 to 14 hours a day, which I don't regret. I love that because I also had food, you know, in my stomach, but I was geared towards doing this. And it happened, and I didn't have a backup plan, which some people would see as reckless. And but in my own insanity, I think I kind of had an idea where I wanted to be, and I was going to get there. Mm. So anybody that wants to pursue that, or any type of art, or anything in their life, do it. Go for it. What's stopping you? You could be dead tomorrow.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah,
Trying to make the best of it.
make the best of it. Yeah, have some fun. Be crazy. Don't text and drive.
Look twice for motorcycles.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're out there. It's a lot harder for us to stop on two wheels. It's easier for you guys on four wheels, so pay attention.
Going through your life story, Frankie, what is there any regrets,
Do I have any
Frank?
regrets?
Yes, sir.
I do. I got one huge regret, and that's been in my head a lot the past week. You know, I was very much, as much as I didn't want to admit it, I was very much my father's son. You know, I don't think I was the toughest kid on the block when it came to fighting, but I was definitely not the weakest. Like, if he put hands on me, nobody could hurt me the way that guy could. So everything else didn't hurt. I don't care if it's two guys, four guys, whatever, you
Hmm.
know. And I had a lot of anger towards my father. And so much that I didn't go to his funeral, you know. I regret not forgiving him and talking with him when I should have, or I could have. But I also know that I had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment towards him, you know, and like me, you know, or he was
Hmm.
very prideful. So that wasn't a good mix. Um, And, you know, like I was visiting my mom last week on my way through, you know, in the Bay Area, and I stopped in to see her. And I've seen pictures of my father around, and I've seen some pictures of me as a kid with my father.
Hmm.
I was like, I don't think it was all that bad. You know, we remember what we remember.
Yeah.
But sometimes when, you know, you've got a lot of painful memories, those seem to get in the front row.
Correct.
So you have to, like I said, but I think about them every day now, and uh, that's probably the one regret I have. But as far as other things that I've done in my life, we all have done things we're not proud of, or done things that we wish we could have done it different. But I also know that, and it's a big thing I believe in, if a lot of us were in a better place spiritually,
Mhm.
emotionally, we probably would have acted better at times towards others, you know. And that's something that we don't acknowledge. We think, oh, we're the bad guy. We did this, It's like,
Mhm.
nah, if I was in a better place, probably wouldn't have done that.
You would have taken a different decision.
Hurt people, that whole scenario. And that's not a cliche. I think there's a lot of truth to that, but some people hurt people way worse.
Hmm.
And so I've learned to make peace with that, because a lot of people go through life, they don't want to own what they've done. And when we look at the things in our lives that we've done, we're not proud of. It's like, yeah, who wants to own that? You know? But when you do, you find a measure of peace with that. It could be a small measure of peace, but you know, that's why I think those kind of regrets, like I think they're a waste of time. I think if you're truly, have amended the best you can in these situations and tried to really right the wrongs in your life, doesn't matter who's watching or who you tell. I think there's
Yeah.
an eye in the sky that knows, and you got to be okay with that, and you have to be okay with you. Yeah.
All right. Well, Frankie, I highly appreciate.
Thanks for having
Thank
me,
you, brother.
brother.
Serious, sincerely. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for choosing this platform. I highly appreciate you.
Mm.
Bottom of my heart. If anybody out there in the viewers would like to purchase your brand, where can they do that?
And if they want to go to the physical store, I'd say go down to Bartell's Harley Davidson in Marina Del Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they are wonderful people. Ask for Ron or Debbie or anybody there.
Yeah.
But also, you'll find us online. Yeah, you can pay attention to my Instagram page,
Mm-hmm.
Frankie Loyal. Make sure it's a blue check mark. There's a lot of fake ones, and they're asking people for money, and it's not me. Um, but yeah, and the word's out there, and you go to some of your local pop-ups. You see in the motorcycle communities. We'll be there, and yeah, I'd love to have you rep our gear. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, brother.
Appreciate it, brother. With that being said,
Yeah.
remember that people will respect you as much as you respect yourself. I'll see you in the next one.
Good.